So I aspire for our organization to be an organization that, yes, we're going to teach our providers how to care for children from the standpoint of providing a safe, loving environment. But we also want to give them the skills to educate children.
You're listening to Nonprofits Today, the podcast that showcases the incredible impact nonprofits have in our ever-changing world. The podcast that gets the pulse on today's economic, social, political, and humanitarian climate straight from frontline leaders, innovative changemakers, and courageous risk takers in our communities and around the globe. And now, without further ado, here's your host, Sarah Box.
Well, welcome back, everybody. I'm Sarah Box, the host, as you know, of the Nonprofits Today podcast. Now, today, we've been talking before I hit record and laughing, so I know you're going to love learning from this gentleman. But I'm formally welcoming Adonai Mack. He is the CEO of Child Action, Inc., a nonprofit that's dedicated to empowering families and childcare providers in Sacramento County. But actually, his reach is much farther than that. We'll talk about that. But under his leadership in particular, that organization, Child Action, Inc., is making strides not only to assist families in finding and affording childcare, but also shape policies that benefit kids across the region. And by extension, when you benefit children, you benefit families. So with that very brief introduction, let me formally welcome Adonai to the podcast. Hi.
Hey, Sarah, how are you doing? Thank you for having me.
So what would you like to add to beef up that very brief bio of you? Anything about coaching sports? I don't know.
Oh man, I've been married for 20 plus years. I have 3 children. I have 3 grandchildren. I've coached them all. I have even my grandchildren. I've coached my grandchildren, much to the chagrin of my wife, who finally told me it's time to retire. So,
And she meant it in a loving way, right? I love you dearly. Stop.
yeah, exactly. No, it wasn't loving. She was like, enough. I want my Saturdays back.
Oh my goodness. So, you mentioned before we were talking about laughter and having fun is one of your values, but what are a few of your other values that have kind of shaped your own life and how you interact with people, Adonai?
So yeah, joy is probably one of the big ones. I think honesty is another one for me, which is funny because for most of my career, I've been a lobbyist, and lobbyists aren't really considered the most honest speaking individuals. And, I can stretch the truth every once in a while as well. But honesty was one of my big ones. I think too, I am, like one of my strengths is futuristic and strategic thinking. And so I'm really into relationship building. And I think that you can be very strategic and successful by having really strong relationships with people. And I think that that's kind of how I built my career is building relationships that are actually authentic and not just transactional. And having those relationships and then cultivating those relationships and maintaining them. I tell my staff or individuals that I've mentored, I say, listen, this person works for the pro tem or the speaker or the chair of this committee. And I'll tell you right now, I can text them right now and they will get back to me because we've known each other for 15 or 20 years. And I think when you build those types of relationships, it really gives you the opportunity to spread your wings, do some really incredible work, and have some success.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, for me, it's about relationships, but you got to have fun doing it. Because if you're not having fun, why are you doing it?
I ask myself that often. By doing this. Just joking, mostly. So, I did want to ask you, you mentioned that, for most of your career, you've done lobbying. But what was your introduction then to nonprofit work?
So actually, I have worked for nonprofits for about, maybe about 16, 17 years before I came to Child Action. And now I would say that the majority of my time was with membership associations. And so I worked with school board members, I worked with school administrators, principals, superintendents, and that's where I did a lot of nonprofit work there. This was sort of a shift for me in that I went from very statewide and an approach, a very statewide approach to work, to doing something that's more direct service, as well as it's more localized. So we're only in Sacramento County right now, and so for me that was a little bit of a different approach or shift. And really, the reason why I wanted to do it is because there's been something in me that I wanted to lead an organization. Um, and this fit, quite frankly, it was a good fit. I had again relationships, right? I had individuals. I had gone through a leadership training program, and my classmates were on the board, and they asked me, "Hey, would you be interested?" And I always have to talk things over with my wife, and when she gave me the green light, I was in. I was in and ready to step in and do the job.
What was the biggest shift for you? Excuse me, working from like a statewide systems kind of association membership level to an individual organization, Adonai?
I think the biggest shift, which I learned over time, was I had an executive coach, and she used to ask me this question every time I met with her. She's like, "How do you want to show up?" And she would ask it to me all the time, and I was not that I was getting angry, but I was like, "Man, what do you mean by that?" And it took me a while to understand what she was actually asking. And I think that was my biggest shift. How am I going to show up as a leader? What does it mean for me to interact with my executive team, with our staff, with the other leaders, our managers, our directors? What was that going to look like for me to show up? And how was I going to do that? And so shifting my mindset around, no, what does it mean to be a leader from my perspective? And how was I going to go about that? I think that was probably the challenge I had in my first year or so of leading the organization, was really understanding all the experience that I had, all of the book I was reading, all the books I was reading, all the research, all of the conversations I had with other leaders in school districts or in other companies, my friends who were CEOs or executive director. All of those conversations kind of have culminated to, okay, so who am I going to be? And what's that going to look like? Um, and it took me a while, but I figured it out. At least so far, I figured it
Well, you get to change if things change.
out.
So,
Right.
but that's a tough question. I mean, like, how do you want to show up as a leader? It can sound like an offhanded question, but when you
Right.
answer it, that cracked me up that you kept getting asked that, because we have to keep asking ourselves,
Yeah.
right? It's that onion thing. It's like, okay, I think it's this. And then when you do this, all of a sudden you go, close, but not
Right.
quite. So, when you said within your first year, you got much more clarity. So the
Yeah.
question I would ask you is, if someone's listening to this, someone who's either thinking of stepping up into a role, or maybe they've worked in a nonprofit but they've never been the leader, or someone
Mhm.
coming from a different field, much like you did, not a totally different field, but a different way of working. Would you recommend them that they get a coach to help them, or was that just something unique to you?
No, I would actually suggest it. I was actually dismissive. And I didn't think I really needed a coach, or I didn't think I really needed that. I thought I was pretty well prepared to step into the role. I was confident about stepping into the role. Um, I didn't have any doubts about like my ability to lead the organization or to do the work. It's not about that when it comes to having a coach. It's really about having someone who's going to challenge you a little bit. Because let's be honest, as the CEO, my staff don't say no to me a lot, right? They also are not always going to say, "Hey, that's a stupid idea. We're not doing it." They don't do that. um, they're not always going to challenge you when you say something that is inappropriate in a meeting or you use certain language. They're not a lot of times they're not going to say something And the ones that do are the ones that are actually really comfortable with you and you have a relationship with them, and they can call you out when you say something that maybe is just just not the right thing to say or right thing to do, right? And I think with the coach, what I experienced was it was someone who was going to push me and challenge me to really look at myself. Because at the end of the day, what a lot of people I think they don't realize when they step into leadership roles is while yeah, you're the person that has to make all these tough decisions and you're the final arbiter of every disagreement that every person has. The reality is that being a great leader is about knowing who you are as a person. And when you know that, then it allows you to really be reflective when you make decisions. It allows you to express sort of your entire personality into your leadership journey, into how you talk to people, how you direct them, how you inspire them. Um, and I think a coach helps kind of bring that out of you. Uh, and so for me, that's what it was. And honestly, I was dismissive. One person told me, "Hey, you should get a coach." I was like, "Man, I don't need no coach." Like, at first, I was like, "I got my daddy. Like, I got him. He can lead me through it." But then I had a second person say it. They're like, "Yeah, you should really think about getting a coach. If it happens one time, you can dismiss it. If it happens twice, you might want to start listening and see what the message is that you're getting." And so I did, and I found a woman. I found an African American woman who works with a lot of Black leaders across the country. It was a recommendation from another friend of mine, and man, I can't thank her enough. She was great. She really challenged me, assessed my skill sets, looked at a lot of different things, was really open when, I would say things like, "Yeah, I know you had a plan for today, but hey, this is driving me crazy. I need a solution." And she was great with that too. So,
So she could pivot when you needed her to.
right, exactly, exactly.
Yeah. It's interesting. I don't know if you ever noticed this. The quicker you say, "Yeah, I don't need that," like from the time someone suggests something, you say, "I don't think so." For me,
Yeah,
I've learned over the years, the quicker shorter that interval is, the more likely I do need it.
right.
Because it's like, "I don't think so." I'm going,
Yeah,
why would you do that?
right,
So,
right.
but that's from a lot of self-reflection, coaching, and
Yep,
all that kind of, it really helps you basically stop the BS on yourself.
yep, yep. That's exactly right.
This
That's
is you.
exactly, yeah.
This is your water to carry, girl. Uh,
Right.
don't put it on someone else. So talk to us a bit about child action in particular,
hmm
and then I'm going to ask you to talk some about what parents and kids are facing in the industry as a whole. So tell us a little bit more about what child action is and does.
Okay. So child action is what we sort of, the term that we use in our state is called, we're a child care contractor. And what that means is that as an organization, we're a nonprofit that is funded by our state to do a few key items. One of those is to enroll families and children into a subsidy program. And and so we have certain criteria and eligibility that a parent needs to have in order to qualify for our program. So things like you have to be 85% of the state median income. And then we can look through your documentation. You also have to be either, looking for work or in school or in between jobs, things of that nature, or employed. Um, and then we collect that documentation to determine your eligibility for us to pay for your childcare. So that's one aspect of our company. The other piece of our company is we help you find childcare. And so we will refer you to childcare. We'll give you lists of what is in the area for what you're looking for. And we will help you find childcare. So we help you find it and we help you pay for it. So that's one aspect. The other piece of it is that we help people become childcare providers. And so you could be working in a center, you want to open up a center and serve, 20, 50 children. We'll help you get licensed. We'll help you pass health and safety requirements and help you through all of the requirements it takes for you to become a center as a child care provider. We do the same thing with family child care homes. Is if you want to open something up in your home, then we also help you do that. Pass background checks, licensing, go through the whole process. We help facilitate you through that entire process and help you get your license. And then we also provide professional development. So we do a whole host of training for all types of different issues for childcare providers. What we're focused on mostly now is trauma-informed care. We do a lot of that for our providers, mostly because ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, are huge challenges in our community. And it's important that the folks who are caring for children sort of understand the basics of that and then have the tools to be able to navigate that with their families and their children. And so that's sort of the two pieces that we do is help everyone find childcare, and then we do training and licensing and help people become licensed to be childcare providers. The one piece about helping people find childcare is it doesn't matter what your income is. You could be the CEO of Chevron, and we will help you find childcare if that's what you're looking for. It doesn't matter your income, we will help you find care.
Well, because you're a trusted resource for that.
Yeah.
You know the people you're referring to.
Yes, we do. And although we don't, because we have a parent choice program, so we don't, at least we try not to like direct parents to a certain area or a certain provider. We provide them the information they need to make an informed decision.
Great. Tailored to the particular situation, right? How many kids they have, where they live, do they commute, that stuff.
Yeah.
That's a lot of work.
Yeah. And sometimes we'll do what we call an enhanced referral. So what that means is we will come in, and if there's a parent and that parent is struggling to say set up an appointment or go visit, we will do all that for them too. We'll say, hey, look, you have an appointment on Wednesday at 10 a.m. to go visit this child care provider. Here's the address. Here's the name of the person. This is the time of your appointment, and then just give that to them and set that all up for them. So all they have to do is show up and do the visit.
Those warm connections are, going back to your whole premise on relationship over transaction, those warm handoffs are important for, especially if people are nervous. Like, what do I say to this person? So what is, I want to ask, you work in Sacramento County, but when you were introducing yourself, you said for now. So I hear there's a plan. So are you able to share some of your future vision or hopes?
Yeah, I think that, we're an organization that's growing. And I have, big, what do folks call it? Big, hairy, audacious goals.
Gags.
I have some. And what I see, and sort of and part of this is me looking into the future and conversations that I have with my friends that work in other organizations or work in different industries, but sort of see our state maybe a little differently than traditional people do. And I think that what we talk about often is if you look around our state, and even like I'll just use the Sacramento region, not every county may have the capacity to serve all of the people that they need to. And my big goal, first and foremost, is we're going to serve every single child in Sacramento County. And I think we can do that in a decade. That's just my belief. I think we can figure out how to do that in a decade. It's going to take a lot of hard work. It's going to require us to be very strategic. It's also going to require us to find the resources to do that. And I have all types of conversations with my team about what that looks like and how we can do that. And there's a lot of ways to do that. But I think once we do that, then it'll be about how do we help our other counties? What's that look like for us? Does it mean that we provide our experience, expertise, and talent to another county to help another organization? Do we share resources? Do we subcontract? Do we train? What does that look like? Does it mean that we acquire? All of those things are possibilities for us. And I look at my job as laying the foundation for, I always say, laying the foundation for the next person to take that mantle and run with it. And for me, if at the end of my tenure as being CEO, if I lay that foundation for the next person to come in and say, hey, my first year, we're going to expand into this county and help this organization or acquire this organization, then, like I can walk away and be like, hey, I did my job.
You laid the foundation.
Yeah, because really it's, that may sound a little like arrogant from anyone else from an outsider standpoint. But from our standpoint, we look at it from how many families can we actually serve? And if someone else is struggling to serve as many families because maybe they don't have capacity, maybe their organization isn't as big as ours. Maybe they can't hire enough people or there's not the talent in the area. But if we do have the talent, then let's talk about how we can help.
Yeah.
Because there's just way too many families that are living in poverty that I think we can impact. And if we're doing the job in Sacramento County, and we have touch points with every single family, why wouldn't we go out and see if we can help all the other families that are adjacent to our county? Why wouldn't we do that? It just, to me, it's a no-brainer for us.
Indeed. Why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially if you built the systems, infrastructure, relationships. Just why wouldn't you?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's not arrogant to have like a sense of, I need this in place, because number one, you don't want to leave an organization and then have it get rocky, right? It takes a while to recover. So I did want to ask you, what are some of the trends that you're seeing, either on the challenge side or the opportunity side, either coming or recent, that you're thinking, wow, we're paying attention to these specific trends? It might be in funding, it could be in cross multidisciplinary work. Are there any trends that you're seeing?
So I would say this: what I aspire to, and some of the trends that I am seeing. So childcare. People talk about childcare in a variety of different industries, and that is certainly a trend that I'm seeing. So when it comes to workforce development, now cities and counties are looking at workforce development, and the barriers to a stable workforce is caring for children, right? So they're starting to use the right language. They're starting to notice the barriers. And so I look at that as an opportunity for us to be engaged in that dialogue and look at that as partnerships. I think also our business community is beginning to understand the value of the work that we do, and then trying to figure out how we fit into how they retain employees. Those are the trends that I'm seeing. Is sort of those conversations.
So I'm asking, a lot of people listening, I'm sure, have kids. They may or may not have ever needed childcare. But there's a lot of jargon in the field, like in every field. But there is early care and education. There's childcare. So, and for listeners, so it's like the whole focus on, if you're in an environment, you should be learning, and it's early and often, and all of this. So Adonai, help us understand, when you say childcare, describe what you're talking about. And if there's a distinction, describe that from ECE.
Okay. So currently, I would say there is a distinction. I don't believe there should be because I have a different vision for what childcare should look like. So I'll explain what the division looks like, then I'll kind of tell you what I'm aspiring for us to support as an organization.
Please.
So in general, childcare for the majority of individuals in our entire country, throughout our state and our country, childcare generally is an environment where the primary aspect is the caring for the child. So developmentally, it's having someone who's loving, who is supportive, and in an environment that is safe and can provide support for the parent. And a lot of times that support for the parent is generally around employment, right? Is they want a place where they know where they drop their child off at a certain time. They know when they come pick that child up, that child's going to come back the same way they dropped them off at, right? Is they're going to be safe, joyful, happy, um, and they're secure and feeling that when they come back and get their child, they're going to be okay. That's the main aspect of what childcare is about. Early childhood development, though, has a little twist on that, in that there is a level of learning and development of the children's brains as in preparation for them to enter into the K-12 education environment. And so the techniques, the strategies are more catered around how you learn and whatever strategies that the care provider or the teacher is providing. Those strategies are going to ensure that this child is prepared to enter into the K-12 environment, right? And so we do have, and it's been like this for a while, or in my career, I sat in on something called the water cooler. It was called the water cooler, and what it was a way to bring education and childcare together to have some conversation, right? Now, my description of childcare is, to some extent, it's also a stereotype, right? I'm just describing generally what most may look like. Some may have a very integrated approach. They have care, but they also have learning, because it's important. I mean, you can start showing an infant things like colors and letters and blocks, and there's a lot of active play that toddlers can have that start teaching them things about cooperation and geometry and science, playing in sand, and there's a whole host of things that children, because children are so curious, like there's a whole bunch of stuff that you can do with children that increase their brain activity, develop their brains in ways that once they step into preschool, they're ready to learn. Once they step into kindergarten, they're ready to learn. They know words, they hear words, they can break words down, they know their numbers, so they're ready for that. And that's where I want to challenge our providers and support our providers in creating those environments. So I aspire for our organization to be an organization that, yes, we're going to teach our providers how to care for children from the standpoint of providing a safe, loving environment. But we also want to give them the skills to educate children, to teach them certain aspects that develops their brains in a way that prepares them for K through 12. My one project, or like one huge goal that I have that is aspirational for me and what I'm pushing through our organization, is that, look, I'm a Black man, and I know good and well that third grade reading scores for Black boys are abysmal. They're abysmal. And I want to see if, as an organization, can we impact that? What's it look like for us to create an environment where the providers that work with us are given the skills and the strategies to educate children and teach children in a way that impacts third grade reading scores? What's that look like? Can we actually do that? My belief is that we can.
I believe you can too, because that specifically, I mean, if you just take third graders as a whole, the reading scores are crap. They're in the toilet.
Yeah, they're terrible.
And then you take a subset like you were talking about as third grade black boys, right? It's like, that's not acceptable.
Yeah, it's unacceptable. It's unacceptable that our educational system hasn't figured out how to educate children in a way to ensure that regardless of the color of your skin, regardless of the language you originally learned when you were a child, regardless of your income, that you should be reading by third grade.
How did you get your love of learning? Because it's clear to me that you study, you read, you're involved, you're engaged. So where did you have to develop that later in life, or were you in grade school like a kid who said, "Where's a book"?
No, gosh, no. I was
I just want to know.
no. I guess I should differentiate between learning and school, right? Like I hated school. I couldn't stand school. Like, matter of fact, even now it probably still carries over because I don't really like school in general.
Let me ask you why. Why didn't you care for school? I have a reason for asking you, so I'm testing.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like it was the challenges I faced. I mean, there was a lot of racism in schools, and I faced it. One of the stories that I always tell is, so I'm in the 6th grade. So the school I go to is K through 6. Then we had a junior high, which was 7 through 9, and then high school, which is 10 through 12. So I'm going from 6th grade to 7th grade. And in 6th grade, I was really good at math. I'm still reasonably good at math. It's one of the subjects I've always loved. I'm in the accelerated math class in 6th grade. And I have a group of my friends. We're all in sort of this little grouping together. And when we go into 7th grade, I go into like math 7. All my friends are in pre-algebra. And that's a teacher recommendation. And I know good and well that all of my friends were all at the same level. We all got the same scores on math tests. Like maybe someone got an A+, I was getting an A-. But we were all getting A's. We're all getting 90%.
Adonai, that's not funny. I mean, that's disgusting.
Yeah, it was terrible.
Because what's that make you? That's totally demotivating. Also.
Yeah. And so in 7th grade, where was I spending all my time? Detention. I was in trouble every day because it was easy. I was sitting in math 7 and I was like sleepwalking through it. It was too easy. And so for me, I had plenty of experiences like that throughout education. And I mean, throughout sort of school. And so I just didn't like school. I think for me, it was my parents and my grandparents, especially my parents. Like, I never was a big reader. Like, I just, you know how it is. If someone's good in math, they're usually not good at English. Like, I mean, not everyone does both really well. I didn't really like to read that much. So my parents started giving me comic books. Man, I read so many. I would just run through. To this day, I probably have like 200 comic books sitting in a box right now. Everything from X-Men to Kung Fu to Spider-Man, the Incredible Hulk. Like I have all types of comic. Black Panther. I got all those, and that's what my parents did to get me to read.
Well, how smart they met you where you were at, right? It's
right,
like
exactly.
They're not going to force you to read. Let's read this story that you could care less about.
Care less about.
Let's give them, graphic novels, comics.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I've always loved learning. Math was okay. I liked it all the way up into calculus, and I thought,
Me
I'm
too.
out. I'm done. Wasn't great on geometry. Loved algebra,
Right,
but
right,
my brain wasn't wired for the spatial. Still today,
right.
but the reason I asked you that is I was wondering if you felt under challenged, because I sometimes think kids, when they're not like they're bright,
Yeah,
right? And so you expect less, so they deliver less, right? But
yeah,
what's the point? So you're in math 7 and your pals are in advanced math, and
yeah,
you might have been a little pissed off anyway. But detention.
yeah. What's interesting is I had a couple of different teachers who, um, it's kind of interesting because like some of my elementary school teachers, for example, my third grade teacher was a friend of our family's, and I learned how to swim at her house. Matter of fact, as a lobbyist, she worked for the Teachers Association, and so when I started doing more political work, she would ask me to come and speak at her events that were around the city. And so like I've known her and her son and her daughter my entire life. And so we kept that contact. I had a fifth grade teacher who taught me everything about how to do outlines that I literally use to this day, like everything. And I went to his funeral when he passed away. Like he was someone that every time I came back home, when he retired, I was at his retirement party. When he passed away, like he was someone that um would challenge you to do good work. And that's something that I believed in. Um, and so like those teachers, man, I love them to this day. I love them.
Well, they shaped you,
Yeah,
and I can hear that when your vision for child action, that filters in there,
right, right,
you know.
right.
So just because you're right, kids are so curious and they will explore and do things until someone tells them they can't.
They can't exactly.
And sometimes I'll hear someone going, "You can't do that," and I cringe. I'm thinking, "How do
Yeah,
you know?" And even if you do know, shut up.
right, right. Let them do it.
Maybe they'll surprise you.
Yeah, yeah. Even as a parent, sometimes you have to kind of catch yourself and say, okay, I'm not gonna say you can't do it. Like I tell my daughter sometimes, I was like, okay, listen, I'm not gonna tell you you can't do it, but you just have to know what's gonna happen when you do something like this.
Just a little heads up, honey.
Yeah, exactly.
So I have just a couple more questions for you. You talk about developing partnerships with school districts to close achievement gaps and that type
Yeah,
of stuff. I'm trying to frame this in a way that doesn't presuppose an answer. But over the last few years, there's been this kind of separation between organizations, education,
oh yeah,
parents, nonprofits.
oh
And
yeah.
I'm wondering how you facilitate those conversations in a way that people feel they want to come to the table to speak about it and curiously come.
Yeah. So first, let me just say I'm not all that successful right now. So let me put that out there.
But you're not a quitter.
It's been a challenge. Don't get me wrong, it's been a challenge. Um, but I think what the one that is working that's gonna work is, it's actually a relationship. Me and the superintendent that we're sort of trying to figure something out and work through, he's someone I know. He's someone I've known in sort of all of our different jobs that we've had over the years. Our kids went to school together. Um, he's someone I know. And when he got his job, I pitched the idea to him. I said, hey, look, this is what I'm thinking about. I want to impact the achievement, the achievement and opportunity gap. I want to impact that. I said, yeah, I'll be selfish because I want to impact it for Black kids because they look like me and I want to help. That's my community. I want to help my community. But I also think these strategies will help any child. I want to be innovative. I'm big on I'm big on things like, look, just because we've done this for 20 years doesn't mean we can need to keep doing it for 20 years. Let's do something different. Let's see what else works. Let's try and be innovative. Let's try to use technology. Um, and let's just see if we can impact this. What's it going to look like for us to pilot a program that I got all the little ones from birth to 4 or 5. You got all the ones from 4 to 8. Can we do this together? What's it going to look like for us to do this? What can we do? Here's my ideas. What are your ideas? What schools do you have that struggle the most? Give me your best teachers. Where in your district boundaries do you have the most challenges? Like, let's talk about this out. Let's get our teams together, and then let's just build something. And we'll find the money. We'll find the money to be able to do it. But let's just figure out what the program looks like, and let's go for it. And when I made the pitch to him, I mean, he knows me and I know him, and he's just like, yeah, let's do it. Let's just figure it out. Let's do it. And I've always said, all I need is a partner. If I get one partner, my belief is if I get one partner, I know we'll be successful, and then I can make the pitch to the others, and they'll leap at it.
Yeah, it creates synergy and energy together that
Yeah.
just kind of starts propelling itself. And folks who want that same goal are going to come along and say, how can I help?
Yeah.
You mentioned before I hit record that you've seen some examples from other states. And I recognize we've been talking about Sacramento County, and I'm thinking, we never said you're in California. So listener, he's in California, which is a big state, tons of kids, and it's a long state.
It is.
And has very uneven educational outcomes depending on where you are. So so you get your state average, but different schools, like you're talking with your superintendent, where are the challenges, right? So, but you mentioned that you've seen some things in another state or other states that were kind of interesting to you as something to check out. What did you have in mind?
Yeah, so I think that what I've really been exploring is how to engage the business community. What does that look like? And my initial idea was, how do I help businesses open up their own childcares on site? That was my first idea. I think since that time, I've sort of it's expanded because there's a lot of different options that a business can have in order to support their employees. One of them, yes, childcare on site. We can help them get licensed. We can help them with resources and tools to provide the best type of environment for their employees. That's certainly one. What I found was, as an example, in Colorado, they have an organization called EPIC. Don't ask me what EPIC stands for because I don't remember. I can probably Google it and find it. But they have an organization called EPIC, and EPIC has created a toolkit for businesses in order to build the resources or have ideas about how to support employees and help them with childcare. And they have a toolkit that was specifically designed in Colorado to help to work with businesses and with childcare providers. That's an idea, right? They've done some good work. It seems to work pretty well in Colorado. I think it's either in Boulder or Denver, one of the two places. But that toolkit seems, sort of ahead of the curve than maybe where the rest of the country might be. Another piece that I saw, we went to a conference late last year, and I heard an organization talk about how they had a relationship with the chambers of commerce. And they were a regular contributor to their chambers of commerce, where they would have dialogue about how the businesses can be engaged, what does it look like for an investment, what types of support the providers needed or the organization needed in order to support childcare. Being engaged with the business community in a variety of different ways was something that was a best practice for me. And to the point like I'm on our Chamber of Commerce. I'm in it. Like I participate in our Chamber of Commerce events, and my staff go to a lot of things and are engaged in that just locally. Um, and I'm actually trying to, since we have so many different cities in our county, now the strategy is how are we in every chamber's conversation? All the chambers that are all the different locales in our county, do we have the capacity to do that? And if we do, what's it look like?
Yep.
Because again, if one of the main things that I tell my team is in the future, what we're trying to get to is we will never have enough money from government, from like our state and federal government resources to serve all the families we need to serve. We'll never have enough money. And so that means that it's going to take an investment from our local government, whether it's our county supervisors, our city council, our mayors. It's going to take an investment from our business community. They're going to have to come in and step in and support and invest in how we can support families, how we can support providers. And then we'll have to get philanthropy. We're going to have some philanthropy. We have to, in order to really serve all the needs that exist. And Sarah, look, if you look just in general of our entire nation, it's not like people are not going into poverty. We continue to have more and more people who are either food secure. I'm sure, like you hear a lot about homelessness and unhoused people in the state of California. It's huge. You can drive around any city and you can see how many people are struggling. So to think that just our state and federal dollars are going to help all these families is to ignore that there's other environments that have to make that investment if we actually want to help people.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, and it's what's interesting in my previous life, when I was working with quality childcare environments and going in, the benefit for parents to a business, I'm speaking the return on investment for a business where their parents, either they're providing the care or they're helping in some way, like you're describing, those people stay. Those parents stay with that company, and they become connected to one another. And the one side I went to, she goes, well, we only have a few here. They're like babies, and they're like babies, infants, right? But the mom can just come in and pump her breast milk if she needs to, right? So, I mean, just really thinking holistically. But that was a huge investment by that company.
It is, and it's not cheap.
No, it is
That's
not.
probably the other thing that, I mean, we haven't really touched on that a lot, is childcare is expensive.
Well, especially when you're talking about quality childcare. People think, well, I used to pay my babysitter this much. I'm thinking, this isn't babysitting.
No, it's way more than that.
Yeah. But I also think, and I don't mean to be flip, but okay, if you went away and you needed a house sitter for your pets, what would you pay a day?
Right.
Right? It's spendy. So why would you think less of your kids?
Of your child. Yeah. I mean, it's expensive. It's high quality childcare is not cheap. And even in the state of California, we've yet to figure out how do we pay for like the actual cost of childcare. Matter of fact, I would just like, can we just get to 50% of the cost? I think we're so far below that.
Well, and the cost of living is high in California.
Exactly.
So someone living in another state where the cost of living is lower is thinking, well, that's pretty good, right? You're thinking, not when you look at what it costs to live in that county.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
So, I mean, it's all within context. And then there's the piece where I don't want to get us too off track, but where do you find these people to be the providers, right? So that kind of educational track. And so I'll be curious. I'm excited to see what you do.
Thank you. I mean, when people ask me about the work, they're like, oh, how are you doing? How's the day? I was like, man, I get butterflies when I think about what all the great stuff that we can do. Every day is different. It's fun. We have a lot of, there's a lot of joy in what we do and our mission. and what we can do. And so, yeah, I mean, just give me a minute. That's all I say. I tell my team, I tell my staff, just give me some time. We got to build some stuff. It takes a while to build things. Nothing was built in a day.
Oh, I thought I was just thinking if you said, give me a minute, I could see if I'm on your team going, holy moly, he's coming up with another idea.
Oh, yeah. They don't want to get emails from me at like 1 o'clock in the morning.
Shame on you sending out emails at that time. Because you know they're going to want to read them because it's.
Oh, I know. I've really resisted. I've changed my habits. I try not to email after 9 or 10.
I just scheduled to go out the next day. It's like I can in the studio at 9. Oh, Adonai, I so appreciate getting to speak with you today and having you as a guest on the podcast. I'd like to offer you the opportunity to offer some advice or wisdom, words of wisdom to other nonprofit leaders who may be feeling kind of stuck either in that question of how do you want to show up as a leader or maybe even in that worry, fear state about, am I going to have the resources I need?
Right. Well, first, Sarah, thank you for having me. We had a good time today. I enjoyed it. It was wonderful. So thank you. I would say to other leaders, we're in some interesting times, and I would say stand strong in your values. Stand strong in what you believe in. It's not easy work. It's always going to be challenging. But I do believe when you stand firm in what you believe in and you have incredible ideas that you truly believe can make you successful, don't be fearful of them. Because in all likelihood, you're probably not even dreaming big enough. And so you should really dream big. I've suffered from that too. Sometimes I don't tell people what I'm really thinking because I think I'm going to scare them because my ideas seem so large. And then when I tell them, they're like, oh, we're doing that. my team will say, oh, we're doing that. Thank you. We're doing it. And so don't be scared. Dream big. You have to dream big because as soon as you begin to share it and you share your joy or enthusiasm or your vision, my belief is you will find people who want to help. You will find people who want to pitch in. You will find people who want to collaborate, partnership. You might find someone who wants to fund it. But if you just keep it to yourself or you don't share it or you're scared about sharing it, then it'll never happen. And like, the old adage, a closed mouth doesn't get fed. So open your mouth, open your heart, and share your vision for what you think is possible. And I promise, if you've developed relationships and you've shared things with people, they'll start coming to you because they believe in what you're trying to achieve.
Thank you so much, Adonai. This has been a great episode.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. I had a good time. I appreciate it.
You've been listening to Nonprofits Today with best-selling author, change agent, and strategic nonprofit coach, Sarah Box. You can grab the show notes and find out how to work with Sarah and the Sandbox team at sarahbox.com. We'd love this podcast to reach as many people as possible, so be sure to rate, review, and share this podcast with someone you think would get value from this conversation. And be sure to tune in and power up with future episodes of Nonprofits Today.